from Sudan. It's understood another 2 people are missing. The RNLI and the French Coast Guard rescued more than 50 people from the vessel, some of whom were taken to Dover. A criminal inquiry has been opened in France. Around 200 police officers and staff in Northern Ireland weren't informed a laptop and documents containing their names had been stolen for almost a month. The theft from a car in July emerged last week after the names of 10,000 police employees were published online in a separate data breach. A group set up to assess the risk to officers has had more than 1,200 referrals. Chief Constable Simon Byrne says he's deeply sorry and the service is working to stop third parties from attempting to cause harm to serving officers. The King says he's utterly horrified about the deaths of at least 80 people as a result of wildfires in Hawaii. King Charles sent a message of condolence to the President of the United States, Joe Biden, saying he's sending his deepest possible sympathies to the families of those who've so tragically lost their lives. Authorities say that number, though, is set to rise dramatically, with hundreds of people still unaccounted for. Fresh evacuations are underway as fires continue to burn on the northwest coast of Maui. The Duke of Sussex has played a polo match raising money for HIV sufferers in honour of his late mother. It was also in aid of his charity Sintobale, which he co-founded to help African children affected by poverty, inequality and HIV/AIDS. Prince Harry played against Singapore Polo Club, captained by his longtime friend Nacho Figueras, who is an ambassador for Prince Harry's charity. Princess Diana pioneered efforts to challenge the stigma around the disease in the 1980s. And England will play the co-host Australia in the semi-final of the Women's World Cup after beating Colombia 2-1 in Sydney. Goals from Lauren Hemp and Alessia Russo helped the Lionesses come from behind after Lizzie Santos gave Colombia the lead. They'll now face Australia on the 16th of August. And fragments of meteors, some the size of a grain of sand, travelling up to 130,000 miles per hour, will light up the sky tonight. The annual summer meteor shower has been active since July and will continue until August the 24th, but it reaches its peak tonight, and the Royal Observatory of Greenwich is recommending watching the fireballs after midnight up until 5:30 a.m, when light pollution is at its lowest. This is GB News on TV, on digital radio and on your smart speaker. That's it from me, but now it's over to Leo.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, an autistic girl was arrested for saying that a female copper looked like her lesbian nana. It turns out being factually correct is now a crime in the UK. In the big story, hundreds of youths descended on Oxford Street to commit crimes. What is happening to this country? I'll be talking to vegan activist Julie Gillatley about her 30 years of activism. I'll be asking her, are people turning their backs on veganism? And the West is failing Ukraine. We need to do more. And we'll be going stateside with Kinsey Schofield, and we'll be talking crack at Hunter Biden. Mark Dolan Tonight is the home of the papers, with tomorrow's front pages from 10:30 p.m. with 3 top pundits who haven't been told what to say and who don't follow the script. Tonight, we have radio and television broadcaster David Hamilton, journalist Hilary Freeman, and newspaper columnist Gary Bushell. And tonight I'll be asking the pundits, is the British Army in crisis? Could the British band in 1975 teach the snowflakes how to properly protest? And has Canada found the answer to NHS waiting lists? Just start killing people. Plus, your emails. Get in touch at gbviews@gbnews.com. So sit down, strap in and get ready. It's time for my big opinion. Police in Yorkshire arrested an autistic girl this week, apparently for the crime of saying that a police officer looked like her lesbian nana. Having had a look at the police officer, I'm now worried that accurate descriptions are illegal in the UK. Here's a picture of the arrest. How many police officers does it take to arrest one girl? It's lucky they didn't have to change a light bulb as well. The police said that there's more to this case than meets the eye, but they haven't said what that could be, and last night they released a statement saying that they were dropping the charges. It all sounded like a crock to me. The police had just escorted the teenager home after she'd got drunk on a night out, but she was accused of a homophobic public order offence. This type of offence can't be committed within a private dwelling. But if she'd said it while they were out, why didn't they take her straight into custody instead of bringing her home? It doesn't make sense. But this isn't a one-off. Britain is the world leader in ridiculous arrests. A man in Aberdeen was prosecuted for farting at police. Stuart Cook was told to bend over during a strip search and then deliberately farted in the direction of the officer 3 times, stating, "How do you like that?" I believe they charged him with breach of the ring piece. The police charged another autistic child in Yorkshire for accidentally scuffing a book. A kid in Wakefield brought a Quran into school as a forfeit. It fell out of a bag and was slightly scuffed, but no damage. But it led to death threats from local members of the Religion of Peace. Instead of investigating the death threats, which are illegal, the police charged the child with a non-crime hate incident. Basically, a charge that stays on your record permanently and isn't a crime but lets police, the government and future employers know that you're guilty of wrongthink. Harry Miller, a former police officer from Humberside, was investigated by police over a limerick that he shared on Twitter. A cohesion officer informed Harry that although he hadn't broken any laws, he should not engage in political debate on Twitter because some people don't like it. Scottish feminist Marion Miller was arrested after posting this picture of a suffragette ribbon, which a trans activist on Twitter complained was a violent hate crime because it could be perceived to be a noose. It's absolute nonsense. Look at it. It looks like a suffragette ribbon because that's what it is. But then again, I suppose trans activists are used to identifying things as objects they look nothing like. The women's rights activist Kelly J. Keane, aka Posey Parker, posted a video about safeguarding children and was then questioned by police for being untoward about paedophiles. They're paedophiles. You're supposed to be untoward about them. What sort of world are we living in when police elevate the rights of paedophiles over women and children? I guess it explains why they did nothing about the grooming gang scandal. But why are the police doing all this? It must be because they've solved all the crime, right? So they've got nothing else to do? Wrong. Crime is soaring in the UK. There were more than 6.3 million crime offences recorded by the police last year, the most in 2 decades. Violent crime has tripled in 10 years, and sexual offences have quadrupled. And the police aren't solving crimes anymore. Burglary clear-up rates have nearly halved to just 4%. Sadly, the police just don't care about crime. They've been captured by woke zealots who put wokeism at the heart of decision-making instead of common sense. If you want the police to attend a burglary, you'll have to say the burglar misgendered you on the way out the door or left a transphobic limerick in the fruit bowl, and then a whole squadron of rainbow-helmeted rozzers will track them down. I don't entirely blame the police officer either. One of the flaws of hate crime laws is that they're not intuitive. When I worked in policing, I asked a policeman how he remembered all the laws to apply them properly. He said he didn't. He just thought in a situation, if he didn't know the law, what would my mum think was right? And that would generally echo the law. That's impossible to do when hate crime laws make some people protected classes and criminalise thought. The sooner we get the ideology out of policing, the better. The police should do away with the concept of hate crime and just deal with actual crime. You're all right. I made it. I know. I'm in risk of making the Scottish Olympic team with that sprint. That is... Anyway, tell me, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Email in gbviews@gbnews.com. I'll get to your emails after the break. But reacting to my big opinion tonight are my brilliant panel of radio and television broadcaster David Hamilton. Great to see you. We've got journalist Hilary Freeman. How are you doing? And we've also got newspaper columnist Gary Bushell. It's great to have you all here. And I mean, what do you make of it?
We almost stood up and applauded. It was a fantastic piece, absolutely fantastic piece, and quite right, because our police now are trained in all sorts of things to do with critical race theory and gender ideology and all this stuff. They forget, no one tells them about free speech.
Yeah.
And this is a terrible thing, that we are now having people arrested in their home for saying things. It's just outrageous.
Yeah.
You should be able to say, hate crime's a fake thing. Concentrate on real crime. Because the things that are supposed to be covered by hate crime are already covered by law.
Yeah. Well, and this is the thing. I mean, so much sort of hate crime isn't. I mean, when Harry Miller took his case to the court, I think he ended up in the Supreme Court with it. The judge said, you know, none of this even strays into the foothills of criminality.
No.
I mean,
but it's easy, isn't it? It's easy. It's soft. The police don't have to worry about getting into trouble. They don't have to worry about getting beaten up. They can just, you know, deal with this stuff and say, we've arrested someone, we've cleared this up. And it's easy for them. And I think they're running scared as well. I think they're running scared of what we said about them, of them being investigated, of being seen to be, you know, not towing the right line.
Yeah.
So...
I mean,
you're right, it's just the easy option, isn't it?
Yes.
It's just an easy option for them, really. Yeah. And I don't think, actually, I mean, this girl was autistic. I don't think referring to somebody as their lesbian nana, it's not that bad. Maybe it was the moustache that did it, I don't know. But, you know, it's not that bad, is it?
Well, and also,
it could be taken as a compliment, actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
how
wasn't being
thin-skinned
used...
is the copper? How thin-skinned are you if you can't... I mean, she must have had worse said to her, surely.
Maybe it was the nana bit that she didn't...
And it wasn't a sort of being used pejoratively. I mean, the girl's autistic. You know, sometimes autistic people can't help but state the obvious or state what's their reality. And she was saying that this particular police officer looked like her nana, who's a lesbian. So, I mean, she's not being homophobic as the mother...
It's an observation.
Yeah, it's an observation.
What they should do is they should concentrate on these shoplifters.
Yeah.
Yes. I know they arrested a few the other day, but that is happening all over the country, and people just I know where I live in Sussex, people, I must stop doing this, but people are walking into shops, just helping themselves and walking out again.
Right, yeah.
And the staff
You live near Richard Madeley.
Yes, me and Richard... Oh, you said that. The staff are frightened to do anything about it. And where are the police? Probably an hour away, you know.
Yeah.
Probably knocking on someone's door about a tweet.
But can I say, I did read a little bit about this autistic girl's story, and she is 16, and the police had to bring her home from Leeds town centre very drunk and being quite disruptive. So I think maybe there's a little bit more to it than her just making this comment.
Which of us haven't been taken home from Leeds?
Yeah, Hillary, come on. We've all drunk a bottle of White Lightning at Leeds Town Centre. I mean, it's not a crime. But, I mean, the police do, by and large, I mean, I think in Britain we've got the best police force in the world. They're fair. I'd rather be arrested by cops in Britain than cops in pretty much any other country.
I think they were the best police force, but I think people have lost a lot of confidence in them in recent years, and I think it's a great shame. I don't know the answer to it, but I think probably you hit the nail on the head. They're bothering too much about this kind of thing and not real crime. Yeah,
and we've seen this seep into all areas of life. I mean, all public institutions, also private businesses. They've got equity, diversity and inclusion departments and officers that go around enforcing this sort of woke dogma. I mean, even though it's idealistically it's aiming for a better society, wants everybody to be treated more fairly and all the rest of it. In reality, it seems to be ruining everything.
Reality is what they don't look at. Reality is not their business. I mean, but you're right. I mean, although there have been a lot of problems with the police force lately, but there are still a hell of a lot of good cops out there doing their own job. And thank God they are, because...
I think the problem is probably more at the top.
Yes.
But the problem with police is you never see them. You know, when I was a boy, which I admit is a long time ago, but it was the bobbies on the beat who were the people who, particularly at night, hear a sound, see a light, they'd investigate. But burglary now is bottom of the list of priorities. It's horrible being burgled.
Yeah, and all the, acquisitive crime and also violent crime, which is worrying, and especially, living in or near London, you must be worried about. I mean, there's knife crime. We hear reports every day of stabbings and murders.
Yeah.
You want them to target actual crime, actual violent crime, and also to give you a feeling of that you can walk the streets without worry.
I'd like them to investigate every burglary. I think they've said that they will do that in future, but they certainly haven't been. And there are so many crimes like that, you know, which has just been put to the bottom of the pile.
I mean, David, were you not shocked to find out that they weren't already investigating every burglary? Because I thought burglary is such a traumatic crime as well. You have your home space violated, you have things taken. It's not just like it's not a sort of victimless crime.
Well, imagine you've been burgled and you can't get a cop to come round to look at that, but you see him on the telly dancing the Macarena or something like, come on.
But on the upside, at least, you know, we don't get stopped by traffic cops who then shoot us, which is what, you know, has happened in France recently. Yeah,
but I mean, it's not like everybody that gets stopped by traffic cops gets shot. But yeah, and I think, you know, there's a danger in picking, you know, a few incidents, and I guess, you know, I'm guilty of doing it myself with this incident. I'm sure most of the time, you know, West Yorkshire police are dealing with crime in a fair and effective way, except for when they're dealing with grooming gangs, of course. And I mean, the grooming gang scandal is sort of related to this, because those were crimes that were ignored by the police, partly
because it contradicted.
Exactly. They were afraid of looking racist and afraid of, you know, that became the mantra after the Macpherson report, you know, after the terrible case of Stephen Lawrence. You know, the police were so afraid of doing anything that could be perceived to be racist that they allowed these crimes to happen instead of tackling them.
The thing is, you've got to look at what is. What should be is a fantastic thing, but it isn't real. Yeah. What is what you've got to deal with, and this is what we forget.
Yeah.
We got to expect cops to do with the reality of what's around us.
And they're on the front line of the worst of reality. They're the thin blue line that stands between us and anarchy.
They're the ones who get the stick. No matter what happens, it's their fault.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really thankless task. Yeah. Really, when you think about it. Hilary, would you like to be a police officer?
Well, do you know what? Funnily enough, a few years ago, I had enough of journalism and I thought, what can I do? And I thought, well, there's this detective scheme, and I've got quite a lot of the skills are quite similar. Yeah. I quite fancy doing that.
You've read a lot of sort of Scandinavian crime drama.
Watched a lot of Line of Duty, you know. I thought, oh, I'll give that a go. And I actually did actually apply. I didn't get anywhere. Right. Because actually, interestingly, the application process was just full of, like, make a video about yourself. And I had to do this kind of test, online test, and the thing it came back with saying the reason I hadn't got through to the next stage was because I was too thorough and I relied too heavily on tried and tested procedures.
You were too thorough to be a police officer?
I thought...
That is slightly more than you want thoroughness.
Absolutely ridiculous. Hang on a second. You're saying that I shouldn't rely on tried and tested procedures? What, I should just make it up as I went along? So I was kind of glad that I didn't get into the police. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of explains the mess we're in now. I'm not going to lie.
I think honestly it does. Yeah.
If you can't trust the police, though, you can't trust anybody. So we must know that we can trust the police. Yeah. And we must know that, you know, if we are burgled, that somebody at least is going to turn up and show some interest in it, rather than, you know, bothering about stuff like this.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed the police are listening. Anyway, coming up next in the big story, hundreds of young people descended on Oxford Street in London to commit crimes because a TikTok told them to. What is happening to this country? I'll see you in 3 minutes. Don't go away.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GBNews,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight. Now, you may have seen this footage online. Hundreds of youths descended on Oxford Street after a TikTok encouraged them to turn up and commit crime and disorder. There have been several arrests and many shops had to close to avoid being robbed. It's now time for the big story with the one and only Mike Parry. Mike, are you there?
I am here indeed, Leo. Thank you very much indeed. I am the one and only, and people will say, thank goodness for that.
Not me, Mike. I wish we could clone you and have just 20 mics on the show. But regarding this story about the mob descending on Oxford Street and robbing shops, I mean, do you think that China's winning? Because I mean, the Chinese government is behind TikTok, and you know they're using it to sow division and degeneracy in the West. If it's not if it's not telling kids about all this gender nonsense to try and get them to transition and sterilise themselves early, then it's telling them to commit crime.
Well, look, to answer your first question, is China winning? I mean, China have been winning at most things over the last 20 years. But funnily enough, Leo, as we're embarking on this story, this week I'm reading that China are taking a dip in their economy, and that's worrying most world economies because, is their revolution, their economic revolution, which of course is allied to their political revolution, is it running out of steam? Now, they do own most things technologically in this country. For those who want more wind farms in this country, they're made in China. For people who want electric cars to dominate our roads, they're going to be made in China. So China are winning in many ways. But can I tell you something about the specific question about this Oxford Street riot?
Yeah.
I think China have done us a favour because the way I've interpreted it, the way I've looked at it, is that it's awful to see Oxford Street going down the tubes like it is. And every night, if you go down there, and I was recently in Oxford Street late on, there are poor people, homeless people sleeping on the pavement in Oxford Street, which is terrible. It's gone right down the tubes. But what I was going to say is that.
Well, and also I was just going to say the shops in Oxford Street, it used to be a sort of a destination for, brands and things like that. And now it's just, Union Jack umbrellas and lighters with a picture of the Queen on them.
I think there's 16 shops that sell nothing but sweets in Oxford Street, OK? I think there's another 40 that sell what you might call plastic phone boxes and plastic telephone boxes, which are coloured red for visitors. But what I was going to say is that the fact that this went out on TikTok, this riot that we're talking about, which happened last Thursday, it actually alerted the police. If you look at the sequence of events, because the whole riot was coordinated on TikTok, you were talking just a few minutes earlier on your show about what responsibilities that the police have, but somebody at the Metropolitan Police had clearly picked up on the fact that this riot was being organised, and they seem to have got there at about the same time as the rioters. And I was also very pleased to see in some of that video footage the odd policeman or two with a raised hand with a baton in it, bringing the baton down on the rioter's head. So I'm very pleased, that a bit of old-fashioned coppering, as you might call it, was involved in this particular incident. The other thing that we've got to make clear to our millions of viewers who don't have to live and work in London like we have to do is that there are two of the great streets around Oxford Street. One of them is Bond Street and one of them is Regent Street. They are absolutely booming because of the terrible state of Oxford Street. So all Oxford Street really have got to do is get their act together and get a bit better. A national newspaper runs a campaign, doesn't it, saying stop the wealth tax. The wealth tax being the fact that you can't get discounts on £20,000 handbags in the West End of London, but you can in Paris and you can in Milan.
But
so
what about the kids? What about this mob of kids that they're descended and they thought the sheer numbers of them meant that they'd be safe, the police wouldn't be able to stop them and they could rob, they tried to rob Microsoft, they robbed JD Sports. I think the bookshops were left untouched, but they thought they could steal whatever they wanted. Do you think there's a problem with British youth that they feel so free to commit these crimes? And we've seen it recently with Mizzy as well, who turned up and I believe breached some sort of ineffectual order by turning up to Oxford Street.
Leo, a gentleman of my age, a certain age, will always say there's a problem with today's youth, OK? I won't bore you to death. My old colleague there, Gary Bushell, sitting on your couch there, will probably empathise with me when I say I've been working since I was 16, OK? Every day I just wanted to get out of bed and go to work. But I noticed that the youth of today actually don't want to spend years building a career. They don't want to spend time learning a craft. They just want instant gratification. And sadly, those who have no respect for law and order, to them, instant gratification is storming into the JD Sports store on Oxford Street and getting themselves a pair of £100 trainers. It's not new. And I think Gary might remember the days when there were organisations called steaming gangs. And these steaming gangs used to hit big shops in the West End of London all the time, rush in, grab everything and rush out again. So it's not a new concept, but it's something now, which I'm delighted to say, we can be forewarned about because of TikTok. So I thank the Chinese for that. I thank the Chinese for a lot of things they've done.
So you see this as a great British tradition, like cheese rolling or Morris dancing, that these youths are keeping alive.
Yeah, well, no, it's not that. I mean, look, I don't want to have a go at the youth of today. I couldn't wait to get out of school and get into a job, and yet members of my family who've been through the university process and all that, they then go off on a gap year for a couple of years and disappear around the world. Then they come back and they suddenly find that their middle-class parents are asking them the delicate question, have you got any intention of getting a job, which might actually earn you some money, stand on your own 2 feet? And that, to me, seems to be the problem these days. Modern youth, I'm not having a go at modern youth because there are some modern youths who are wonderful young people, seem to think that the world owes them a living. I watch a fantastic documentary on television called Spitfire. I've seen it 2 or 3 times. And these are young men, aged 19, who left university to climb into a Spitfire and fly up into the skies over Kent and face the Messerschmitts of Germany. I'm not sure how many of our youth today would actually do that.
Do you think that could be a solution to the problem? If we bring back national service, it'll bring discipline to these youths.
I don't think we should start taking our revenge on Brexit to that extent. I'm not saying that for one moment. But what I'm saying is, people have got to have an allegiance to their own beliefs, and that is to work hard and try and establish themselves in life. But they've also got to have an allegiance to their country. I would say that gangs of young people going steaming round Oxford Street is very un-British. We are the fairest and most democratic country in the world. We allow more tolerance to the way people want to live their lives than anybody else. But in my view, that tolerance factor, and this extends to young people coming across the English Channel in boats who want to come and live here, our tolerance factor is now being taken advantage of. And I would like to see a return to the values of, if you want something in life, stand on your own 2 feet and get it. Don't go steaming into JD Sports on Oxford Street and nick yourself a pair of £100 trainers because you can't be bothered to
Wise words.
and get a career to earn the money to do it yourself.
Absolutely. Wise words there from Mike Parry. And Mike, it's been absolutely fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to discuss that with our pundits in a moment after the break. But first, we've got the weather. Don't go away.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK over the next few days. There'll be some sunshine, but some rain too. But things will be turning warmer, certainly towards the middle part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment. That's feeding a fair few showers in on the southwesterly breeze. And we'll need to keep an eye on this little feature running in from the southwest. That'll bring some more rain on Sunday night into Monday. Back to tonight, though, it's a case of clear spells and showers. The most frequent showers towards the north and west of the UK, some of them fairly heavy towards the northwest of Scotland. In the best of the clear spells down towards the southeast, temperatures holding up fairly well actually at 15 or 16 degrees and falling no lower than 13 or 14 towards the north and northwest. As for Sunday, well, it's a day of sunshine and showers. The showers most frequent and most widespread on Sunday towards the north and northeast of the UK. A few heavy, perhaps even thundery ones around here. Whereas towards the south and east, it's a brighter picture, plenty of sunny spells around. And with lighter winds than on Saturday, it should feel a bit warmer out and about. Temperatures peaking at 23 Celsius, 73 in Fahrenheit. Monday, there looks like being a pretty unsettled day across England and Wales. Outbreaks of quite heavy, potentially thundery rain working in from the southwest as we go through the day. Whereas towards the north and northwest, it's a day of sunshine and showers once again. And temperatures peaking in the high teens to low 20s, 23 down towards the southeast is 73 in Fahrenheit. Warming up though as we head toward the middle of the week, we could even see 30 degrees in 1 or 2 spots.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Coming up next with the pundits, as the Army considers hiring pensioners, is the British Army doomed? The British band, the 1975, could be sued for £2 million after 2 male band members kissed on stage in protest against anti-LGBTQ laws in Malaysia. Now, that's a protest, and Canada's dangerous assisted dying laws are leading doctors and nurses to offer suicide as a solution to depression. That's right, Canada has fixed the waiting list problem. Just start killing people. I'll see you in 2 minutes. Don't go away.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows,
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kerst, tonight. Let's have a look at some of your emails. Terry says, your monologue was a masterful display, concise, accurate and true. I swear to God, I've not paid Terry to say that. Jacqueline says, without having in-depth training in autism, shouldn't these officers know autistic people say as they see, they do not stop to put things in politically correct context? That's a very good point. Autistic people quite often see things in very literal, and say things as they see it instead of thinking about the social niceties and whose feelings could get hurt. Joe says, I am a transgender woman and I love your shows. Anything mentioned about transgender, I laugh. I think all people should chill out. Too many people these days spend their time thinking of things to complain about. Keep going with your cheerful outlook on things. Thanks, Joe. I will do. Don says, the police now terrify me because they've gone woke. All normal values and standards have gone and it's recruited too much from the deviant brigade of university activists. Fair point, Don. Eric says, the reason for the riots in Oxford Street is social media. It should be banned, not just TikTok, but all of social media. It causes riots all over the world. We can live without it. Maybe you can, Eric, but I don't know. I might have to find some friends or read a book if I didn't have social media. Anyway, back with me now, and joining me throughout the show are radio and television broadcaster David Hamilton, journalist Hilary Freeman, and newspaper columnist Gary Bushell. Thanks for joining me again. Now, a Canadian woman has revealed how medical staff asked whether she had considered euthanasia when she went to the hospital for help with suicidal thoughts. Canada's Medical Assistance in Dying policy was established in 2016 and has since expanded its criteria for who can access lethal injections to mature minors and people with non-fatal conditions. Has Canada found the solution to NHS waiting lists? Just start killing people? Is this one of the issues with assisted dying?
That's a bit strong, isn't it? I mean, 37, and they're offering her euthanasia.
Yeah.
I mean, God.
I mean, and she originally turned up with depression. And you think, well, if you go to a healthcare professional with depression, they're going to hopefully try and, make you happy again.
Who's running this system? The ghost of Harold Shipman. I mean, what the hell's going on? It's outrageous, isn't it?
That's a fair point. I mean, this seems to be almost. Although I'm sure people from the Canadian government would say, "Oh no, we vet everybody. We follow strict rules and protocols." But I mean, Hilary, I've read about some of these cases. There was a case of a mother who only found out that her 23-year-old son was going for this medically assisted dying when she opened a letter by accident, and there's nothing wrong with him apart from he had diabetes and he was depressed. So these are, could be a chronic condition, but certainly things that you can live with and have a fulfilling life with. It seems insane that the government was ready to kill a 23-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that his mother only found out. I mean, he is an adult, and unfortunately, he has his own rights over his own medical treatment.
Well, not according to her.
Well,
she managed to stop him getting killed.
Yeah, well,
he's probably grateful now.
Probably. This is the interesting thing about us. I mean, I do believe in assisted suicide, but under very, very strict criteria. So if you've got a terminal illness or a life-limiting illness, that means that you are in terrible pain and suffering and there's no hope of survival, then I do think that you should be allowed to get some sort of medical assistance. You shouldn't have to go to Switzerland.
It sounds like the safeguards there are being eroded, don't it?
Yeah, that's the problem here. And I think, you know, what I do know about this is that people who, for instance, who've been paralysed in an accident, who say they want to die, you go back to them a few years later and they say, no, I don't want to die, because they've learned to live with it.
Yeah.
And I think with people who are like 37, if you ask them then, they might say, no, life's not worth living, I just want to die. But actually, if you give them the help that they need, a few years down the line, they probably say, thank God I didn't die.
Yeah.
So I think it's far too young to be offering that.
And, you know, far too sort of manageable conditions to for the government to step in and start.
It's certainly not the way to save the NHS. That's for sure.
No.
There is a way to save the NHS. This is not it. I mean, it's turned from this national treasure into like a burning furnace. Every bit of money you throw at it gets obliterated.
I'm just wondering what sort of system they have in Canada. What is their equivalent of the NHS? I mean, why are they so keen for people to pop off so young?
I think it's a progressive government that's sort of got out of control. Not dissimilar to the SNP in that respect. Anyway, Dad's Army was a great comedy, but it wasn't a blueprint for a successful armed forces. Someone should have told the Defence Minister. Andrew Murrison suggested this week that to improve recruitment and retention in the armed forces, the age cap on serving personnel could be raised. Murrison also wants to attract more neurodiverse people to the military as cyber warfare becomes a key focus. Is the British Army in crisis? Shouldn't we be recruiting fit young men?
It's definitely in crisis, the British Army. I mean, it's turned into, from a robust body, it's turned into like the skeleton of a sick man. Let's not pretend. You know, it's been run down by successive governments. Successive governments, many of whom pretended to be conservative, but effectively were not conservative.
Yeah.
And it's a shocking situation. I mean, now the idea of Compo and Clegg and the last of the summer wine division coming at us. You know, it just come on. Let's be serious. We have to invest in the military again. There's never been a more dangerous time than this, I don't think. Not since the 30s.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We've got war in Europe for the first time since the Second World War. And I mean, what strikes me about Britain is why would somebody fight for Britain when we're having our culture, our values eroded? We're being told, we're not. I mean, what even is Britain anymore?
Not only that, you look at the way we treat our ex-soldiers. How many hundreds and thousands of ex-soldiers are on the streets? How we let lawyers chase them all over Northern Ireland? Just resurrecting the supposed crimes of the past. We treat our ex-servicemen terribly, and it's about time someone stood up for them. So why on earth would any of them want to come back?
Yeah.
How would we manage if there was a war with such a small army? And like the police that we were talking about earlier, they've got to a point that, they'll take almost anybody now. I did my national service years ago in the RAF, and, I was called up at that particular time. You had to do 2 years. Right. I'm just worried I might get called up again.
I feel safer already. Anyway, it seems that the 1975, the pop rock indie band led by frontman Matt Healy could be showing the snowflakes of today how to really protest. The band are being sued for £2 million in damages after Healy kissed bassist Ross MacDonald on stage in Malaysia, a country where homosexuality was illegal. Is this the new way to protest disruptive performative measures that carry big consequences? I mean, I've got to say, I sort of respect this because, so many people will just put it on Twitter, but Matt Healy put his lips where his mouth are, and mouth is. And
I had lunch today with my daughter and my granddaughter, who are great fans of the 1975 and saw them at Reading Festival a few years ago, so they know more about them than I do. Yeah. And they said to me about this, they said it was a gesture, but when you go to another country, you've got to remember their rules and their beliefs, and But she said, although it's going to cost them a lot of money, they've actually got a tremendous amount of publicity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
I would fine him just for singing, to be honest with you. I can't stand that whine. It's a horrible misery pop, isn't it? It's just overproduced cobblers.
Not your cup of tea?
No.
On a serious point, though, Should they have gone there in the first place? They knew what the laws were.
Well, I don't think I don't think they Googled before they went. You know,
everybody knows that in Islamic countries that homosexuality is illegal.
But I don't think a lot of people even know that Malaysia is an Islamic country. I used to go and perform. I didn't know until I went to perform in Kuala Lumpur. I didn't know until I got there.
It's getting more and more extreme as well. Like the anti-gay laws are getting more and more extreme, and that's the thing.
And my friend Rizal, his comedy club in Kuala Lumpur was shut down by the morality police in Malaysia.
After your performance?
No, luckily none of them could understand my accent. So that's
you don't kiss other men on stage, do you?
No.
You don't give them the Glasgow kiss, do you?
The ugliest kiss imaginable. But
I mean, the thing about them, though, is you say about the snowflake thing, they are the most snowflake band around, aren't they? I mean, every woke thing you could possibly endorse, they endorse it.
Yeah, but I like seeing pop stars who actually, you know, do something instead of just saying something. Because Beyonce, for example, Beyonce always says, "Oh, we need to be kind," blah blah blah. But meanwhile, you know, she was going out doing gigs for, you know, Colonel Gaddafi's son and pocketing millions for that. So, you know, I like it when actions mirror what people really believe.
Yes.
Anyway, coming up next, we've got a vegan activist who's been campaigning for 30 years. But are people turning their backs on veganism? I'll see you in 3 minutes.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Put in your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panelists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference. And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse. We've got an email in from Chris, who corrects me. He says the war in Ukraine is not the first war in Europe since World War II. Have you forgotten the Yugoslavian war, the dreadful genocide there and the subsequent breakup of Yugoslavia? Yugoslavia was in Europe. Well, yes, I had forgotten the Yugoslavian war. And yeah, they need to make more films about it. They made loads of films about World War II, and I don't think they made any about Yugoslavia. Anyway, moving on to the next topic. Earlier this week, Beyond Meat, the US vegan meat manufacturer, reported that sales of their fake burgers and sausages had fallen by almost a third. In 2019, the company's market value was £8.9 billion. Today, that figure has nosedived to £770 million. Vegan food producers here in the UK are also struggling, as meatless farms in Leeds called in administrators earlier this year. So, as the popularity of plant-based food produce plummets, a bit of a tongue twister there, is veganism on the way out? I'm joined now by the founder and director of the vegan charity Viva, Juliet Gellatley. Is that how you pronounce it, Juliet?
Well done, you got it right first time.
Amazing. That's a first. And do you think veganism is on the decline?
No, it's definitely not. Beyond Beef is a particular example, and so is the other one that you mentioned that have got their own reasons. But there are other major meat substitute companies like this, whose profits have gone up 55% this year. Bol has gone up 50%. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is that the supermarkets have let these companies innovate, and now they've copied what they've done and produced cheaper versions, and the supermarket plant-based meats have increased by about 14% in the last 12 months. The growth has slowed down in terms of plant-based alternatives, the meat substitutes, but it's still growing.
We've seen some people
phenomenal over the past 4 years.
We've seen some people express concerns over Beyond Meat and these other sort of manufactured, synthesised vegan alternatives to meat because they say they're over-processed and they lack nutrition. And, you know, do you think the future is actually for vegan food to just be the actual vegetables? Because, I mean, I eat vegetables, next to a bit of meat, but, the vegetables themselves seem to be delicious and fine. I don't know why they need to change them into a steak. Nobody's getting steak and trying to turn it into broccoli.
Well, this is the thing. You see, the meat substitute market is not aimed at vegans. It's aimed at meat eaters. So you have to remember that. And so a meat eater hasn't got the commitment to the product in the way a vegan has. So they will switch to cheaper products much more easily, especially in a cost of living crisis. So in answer to your question, yes, definitely. For example, this are producing food products that are going to be based on vegetables and not synthesized meat. But I just have to say there's something really interesting about this, and one of the reasons Beyond has declined in the USA is that the meat industry have been really clever in that they have collaborated and done a very concerted campaign saying that vegan burgers are synthetic, whereas beef is natural. And now I think it's going to come back and bite them on the bum, though, because the vegan food sector is now coming together. And they're going to remind the public that actually beef burgers are a class 1 carcinogen. It actually, we know, causes cancer of the bowel. And the preservatives used in red meat, the nitrites, cause cancer of the prostate, cancer of the pancreas. These are much more serious, health concerns than, say, methyl cellulose. They put out this big ad across
the nitrites are used in processed meat. So if you buy a steak, it won't have added nitrites. I've noticed you've got a lovely dog in the background, Juliet.
I have.
A Springer Spaniel. Is your dog a vegan?
She is, yes.
Is that her choice?
Well, you have the choice of giving them factory farm meat, which is hard. My little dog would not kill a cow naturally, would she? Or a massive pig. So it's hardly natural giving them factory farm food. And she's thriving. The vets are very, very happy with her.
And are insects a viable source of protein? I'm always seeing memes about, the World Economic Forum is going to make us eat Z-bugs. Do you think we could switch to insects? And would you approve of that as a vegan?
There's absolutely no need, because even with insects, it takes more land, more water, produces more global warming gases than just eating vegan foods. It's the most environmentally friendly and animal friendly way to be. It's only going to grow because all the world's problems are just going to become more pressing, and the World Health Organization and the United Nations are going to push the world towards veganism.
Thank you very much, Juliet Galatly from Viva. That's absolutely fantastic. But coming up next, we'll be going stateside with Kinsey Schofield. My take at 10, the West is failing Ukraine. And we'll see you in 3 minutes. Don't go away.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK over the next few days. There'll be some sunshine, but some rain too. But things will be turning warmer, certainly towards the middle part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment. That's feeding a fair few showers in on the southwesterly breeze. And we'll need to keep an eye on this little feature running in from the southwest. That'll bring some more rain on Sunday night into Monday. Back to tonight, though, it's a case of clear spells and showers. The most frequent showers towards the north and west of the UK, some of them fairly heavy towards the northwest of Scotland. In the best of the clear spells down towards the southeast, temperatures holding up fairly well, actually, at 15 or 16 degrees, and falling no lower than 13 or 14 towards the north and northwest. As for Sunday, well, it's a day of sunshine and showers. The showers most frequent and most widespread on Sunday towards the north and northeast of the UK. A few heavy, perhaps even thundery ones around here. Whereas towards the south and east, it's a brighter picture, plenty of sunny spells around. And with lighter winds than on Saturday, it should feel a bit warmer out and about, temperatures peaking at 23 Celsius, 73 in Fahrenheit. Monday, there looks like being a pretty unsettled day across England and Wales. Outbreaks of quite heavy, potentially thundery rain working in from the southwest as we go through the day. Whereas towards the north and northwest, it's a day of sunshine and showers once again. And temperatures peaking in the high teens to low 20s, 23 down towards the southeast, is 73 in Fahrenheit. Warming up though as we head toward the middle of the week, we could even see 30 degrees in one or two spots.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the people's channel and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse. It might take at 10. The West is failing Ukraine. We need to do a lot more. We'll be going stateside with Kinsey Schofield. We'll have the latest news from the soap opera that is the US of A. And Mark Dolan Tonight is the home of the papers with tomorrow's front pages from exactly 10:30 p.m. sharp. So, a busy hour to come, so put something cold and fizzy in the fridge or fire up the kettle and let's make a night of it. First, the headlines with Aaron Armstrong.
Very good evening to you. It's 10 o'clock. I'm Aaron Armstrong in the GB newsroom. The 6 people who died after their boat got into difficulties in the Channel this morning were all Afghan men. That's according to French prosecutors who've said the majority of the migrants on board, including some children, were from Afghanistan, along with several from Sudan. It's understood another 2 people are missing. The RNLI and the French Coast Guard rescued more than 55 people from the vessel. More than 20 were taken to Dover. A criminal inquiry has been opened in France. Around 200 police officers and staff in Northern Ireland weren't informed a laptop and documents containing their names has been stolen for almost a month. The theft from a car in July emerged last week after the names of 10,000 police employees were published online in a separate data breach. A group set up to assess the risk to officers has had more than 1,200 referrals. Chief Constable Simon Byrne says he's deeply sorry and the service is working to stop third parties from attempting to cause harm to serving officers. The King says he's utterly horrified about the deaths of at least 80 people as a result of wildfires in Hawaii. King Charles sent a message of condolence to Joe Biden, the President of the United States, saying he's sending his deepest possible sympathy to the families of those who've tragically lost their lives. Authorities say that number is likely to rise, with hundreds of people still unaccounted for. Fresh evacuations are underway on the island as fires continue to burn on the northwest coast of Maui. The Duke of Sussex has played a polo match raising money for HIV sufferers in honour of his late mother. It was also in aid of his charity, Centre Ballet, which he co-founded to help African children affected by poverty, inequality and HIV/AIDS. Prince Harry captained one side and he played against the Singapore Polo Club captained by his friend and the ambassador of his charity, Nacho Figueras. Princess Diana pioneered efforts to challenge the stigma around the disease in the 1980s. England will play the co-hosts, Australia, in the final of the Women's World Cup after beating Colombia 2-1 in Sydney. Goals from Lauren Hemp and Alicia Russo helped the Lionesses come from behind after Lisi Santos gave Colombia the lead. And that game against Australia, the semi-final, will take place on the 16th of August. Finally, stargazers are in for a treat tonight as a meteor shower is expected to light up the night sky, depending, of course, on where you are. It's the annual summer Perseid shower. It's been active since July and continues until the 24th of this month. But tonight is the peak. Royal Observatory of Greenwich says between midnight and 5:30 a.m. will be the best time when light pollution is at its lowest. This is GB News on TV, on radio and on your smart speaker. That's it from me. Now it's back to Leo.
Welcome to Mark Dolan Tonight with me, Leo Kearse. Tonight, we'll be going stateside with Kinsey Schofield, and we'll be taking a crack at Hunter Biden, amongst other things. And at 10:30 p.m. sharp, we'll be getting tomorrow's papers hot off the press. Plus, we'll have tonight's headline heroes and backpage zeros. Big stories, big guests, and always big opinions. Here is my Take It 10. The West is failing Ukraine. Now, I know that Ukraine can be a controversial topic. Some people don't support Ukraine. They say it's got high levels of corruption. Well, being part of Russia isn't going to help with that, is it? They say that our government lied to us about COVID, so they must be lying about Ukraine. That's a fallacious argument. Some say that Ukraine harbours dangerous right-wing nationalist elements, to which I say, look, I already like Ukraine. You can stop convincing me. Some people are worried about nuclear war. I'm not. After 30 years of neoliberal government, the UK's urban centres would be improved by a bit of nuclear annihilation. And some people see Putin as some sort of based saviour of Christendom against the degenerate West. This is nonsense. Ukraine is a proud country with traditional European values, fighting to preserve its people, culture and sovereignty. And it's the front line of Western liberal democracy against autocracy. But the West isn't giving Ukraine the support it needs. Europe is still buying Russian oil and gas hand over fist, giving Putin $18 billion to fund his war machine this year alone. The EU is getting around Russian sanctions by using other countries as intermediaries to trade with Russia in other goods. This chart shows how German exports to Kyrgyzstan surged since the war. Actually, this chart shows the EU just behind China in buying Russian fossil fuels. But it makes me wonder, has Germany ever been on the right side in a war in Europe? And our hesitation over providing weapons has prolonged the war, holding back cluster bombs because they'd leave unexploded munitions on Ukrainian land, allowed Russia to lay thousands of mines, which are far more dangerous than the cluster bombs. Holding back tanks allowed Russia to fortify against them, so the West is humiliated by seeing its prime kit caught in Russian artillery traps and Ukrainian men die. Holding back long-range missiles allows Russia to move its munitions and logistics hubs out of range. Holding back jets allows Russia to have the upper hand in the air, forcing Ukraine to bring its air defences closer to the front line where they're vulnerable. And all this dithering lets Putin and anyone who might otherwise topple him know that if he drags this out long enough, the West will eventually run out of spare weapons and resolve and leave Ukraine to fall. What's worse is that it's a deliberate tactic. The West seems to want to cynically bleed Russia's military capacity dry through a protracted war of attrition that will leave tens of thousands of unnecessary casualties on both sides. With Russia preparing for another offensive, it's disgusting to see the West drag its feet. With the right weapons, Ukraine could fold Russia's tired army in half. But then again, why should we expect the West to genuinely help a country stand up and fight for its culture, its integrity and its sovereignty when we can't even do the same in our own countries? Russia's big mistake was to try and invade a European country by force. If they just ripped up their passports and walked in, they'd be impossible to stop. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Email gbviews@gbnews.com and I'll get to your emails after the break. Reacting to my Take It 10 tonight are radio and television broadcaster David Hamilton, journalist Hilary Freeman and newspaper columnist Gary Bushell. Could you hear that okay over there? No? Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
You're in another room. We can hear you.
I know. This is the trouble with doing somewhere we're not directly sitting opposite each other. But I mean, how do you feel about Ukraine? I mean, it feels like the war is dragging on. Ukraine's counter-offensive didn't really deliver much in the way of progress, and now Russia's gearing up to
I think
another offensive.
You're essentially correct in what you were saying, but the real tragedy of it is how little the West has learned from history. Because if we understood history, we'd have seen in Putin's occupation of Crimea, we'd have seen exactly the same process that Hitler started with the Anschluss in Austria and then the occupation of Czechoslovakia. This has to be nipped in the bud. It has to be stopped, because it will not stop. It will not stop.
Part of the problem is that when Putin seized Crimea in 2014, We didn't do, the West didn't do anything to nip it in the bud. And if we'd done something, if we'd showed strength then, all this tragedy could have been averted. I mean, Hillary, what do you make of
his
this?
ambitions then. He knew he thought he had a week, he could just push whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And that was our big mistake then. We should have reacted harder then. As NATO, I mean, not just the UK.
Yeah. Hillary, would you like to see us up the flow of weapons to Ukraine so they can finish it properly?
I think that we should give more weapons to Ukraine. I think the danger is that, you know, we don't want to start World War III. And I don't know how much longer Putin will hold out, you know, and if Putin doesn't last, which is quite feasible, who will come after him? I think, you know, the history of this whole area, I mean, my ancestors are from Ukraine. At that time that they lived there, I think it was Poland. At other times it's been Russia. So that whole geography has always been a real mess. And as far as Putin's concerned, it still belongs to Russia and it always has done. So I think it's naive to think that we can just go in there, give them a few weapons, win the war and it will all be over and everything will go back to normal because, you know, Ukraine as a modern state is a very, very recent thing.
Yeah, taking up what Hillary said there, I think that we want to be very careful of the forces that are gathering in Belarus, close to the Poland border. And I understand that Poland are certainly arming very, very seriously. So I think that, you know, that is possibly where the next danger is going to come from.
Well, yeah, we've seen the Russian mercenary group, the Wagner group, actually decamp to Belarus, and they're dangerous to both sides. They almost did a coup on the Kremlin. They had that march to Moscow that had me staying up all night watching it. It was incredibly exciting, but I mean, unfortunately, he chickened out at the last moment.
I wonder if that was a red herring.
I
wonder if that was a red herring that was thrown at everybody, and that in actual fact, you know, they're all in it together, and this lot are the ones we need to watch out for.
But you really think they are all in it together? Because, I mean, it seems like Russia is the most fragmented country in the world. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason between... Even the army has different branches that fight against each other, like literally directly fight against each other. The Wagner military group were fighting... we're in armed conflict with other parts of the Russian army.
But have you seen the size of it? I mean, it's like a continent, isn't it? No wonder it's fragmented. It's huge. You know, we're like what, a tenth of it for the UK? I don't know, but you know, it's a vast piece of land, and you know, it's incredible, really, that Putin has held it together this long.
But the thing about Putin as well, to expand the Hitler analogy, is that they both informed by misguided history. But they've got a wrong take on history. They're trying to regain their imperial past, etc. It's like one of us turning around and saying, right, what we've got to do is we've got to retake Ireland. We've got to have the north of France, because that was ours. You know, we've got to take America back. Come on, that was British. You know, it's as mad as that. And yet... nobody seems to have enough balls to actually go, we're going to stop this properly.
Yeah.
No, but we said earlier that people are worried that this is going to turn into World War III. So, you know, there is that sort of, we've got to tread carefully.
Isn't there a bigger risk?
I think as far as Britain is concerned, I think we've done pretty well compared with most of the European countries. I think, you know, as we're quite a small country, I think we've done our bit, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Britain rallied, particularly under Boris Johnson. We rallied the international response to the Ukraine crisis, and you know, led the way in delivering. I mean, most recently, the Storm Shadow cruise missiles that can be real game changers. But I mean, Russia's military has really been exposed. It used to be thought of as the second best military in the world. It's currently the second best military in Ukraine. And isn't there a risk that for Russia that China sitting on the east side could actually come in and invade?
We've allowed successive governments to run down the British armed forces to such an extent. You know, I don't think we've ever been weaker than we are now. There's probably me and David going to be the dad's army. They're going to get sent over there if it ever goes any further, you know?
Yeah. And do you think China could be looking at Russia, now that Russia's military is bogged down in Ukraine, and they're looking at all the resources in the east of Russia, which is right next door to China, and thinking, why should I be paying for this oil? Why should I be paying for all these minerals when I could just go in there and take it?
Yeah. I think, you know, what we do have to worry about China. I think it's all very well worrying about Putin, but we've always got to keep our eye out.
China are much smarter. China think in generational terms. They're not thinking about next week, next year. They're thinking about 100 years down the line. They're very shrewd what they're doing. Yeah. And I think the British securities, British MI6 has been worried about China for over 20 years. But it's we're only now really realising the potential for damage they could cause.
I think also that next time it could be a different kind of warfare.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I worry about AI, you know, and how that could be used in the hands of the wrong people.
AI, well, if we had an AI army over here, it'd be made in China, wouldn't it? The Chinese would pay for anything.
That's a very good point. Anyway, thanks for discussing that with me. Coming up, we've got the papers at 10:30 p.m. sharp with full panel reaction. But next is Kinsey Schofield. We'll be taking a crack at Hunter Biden and Prince Harry's new scheme to help poor kids. You won't believe what it is. It involves horses. See you in a couple of minutes.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political budgets.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's time now for US News with the queen of American showbiz, royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield.
Leo, it sounds like magic coming out of your mouth. What a title. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I've got to be honest, in Scotland, it's just, I just sound like a regular alcoholic. But thanks for joining us, Kinsey. It's great to see you.
Good to see you, too. I love watching you step in for Mark.
Thanks. Now, it seems that the president's son, Hunter Biden, is in deep waters with his legal troubles this week. What's been going on?
What a tornado, Leo. Yeah, some conservative media outlets believe this appointment by Merrick Garland is a move to undermine claims from Republicans and these IRS whistleblowers that the prosecutor investigating Hunter Biden, David Weiss, is actually being led by the Biden administration. Weiss was elevated to special counsel just this Friday, and while there is some pushback from the right claiming that the appointment of the special counsel is just a bid to stonewall their investigation into the Bidens, realistically, this new status grants Weiss this additional power to broaden his inquiries, potentially going beyond the state of Delaware into D.C., into California. So could this investigation evolve from just tax, the tax charge, the gun charge, into some of Hunter's sketchy business activities? That's what people want to know.
And of course, some of those business activities have been linked. I mean, the House Oversight Committee says that it's money flowing in, millions of dollars flowing into to Joe Biden's family in sort of political graft. I mean, do you think that could be exposed further?
That is exactly what this could potentially expose. I mean, and just to that point, we learned Friday that the negotiations around Hunter's previous sweetheart deal that the judge found unconstitutional, those negotiations have stalled, and Hunter is likely to go to trial. And the idea of a sitting president's son going on trial in the spotlight of not only mainstream media, but social media, it's really unbelievably frightening to the White House. That would be an incredible distraction, but I also think it could be catastrophic for a re-election campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you think this could affect Joe Biden even running as the candidate in 2024? Could they pick someone else? I mean, I know Michelle Obama has been touted as a name.
I've heard that too, Leo. I know, and people look at me funny, but I've absolutely heard Michelle Obama too. Yeah, I mean, Michelle Obama and Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom, the way that we see in the States promoted tweets from Gavin, promoted X's, I don't know what we're allowed to call them anymore, but Gavin Newsom promotes his social media content. He's really trying to put his name out there, not necessarily so we know where he stands, but he's just trying to throw himself at you so you know who Gavin Newsom is and you recognize him in case he has an opportunity to swoop in and be the Democratic candidate. But there are whispers of other people waiting in the wings in case things go south. I do think, however, that Hunter Biden would do everything. We heard he's like recording a documentary. He's trying to fight these allegations the only way he knows how. But I do think he's going to try to step up and defend himself to protect his father.
Yeah. And do you think the Democratic establishment will make moves to suppress the story? I mean, we saw in the previous election in 2020, they colluded with government agencies, they colluded with big tech to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story.
The short answer is yes. I mean, it was wild to watch that while it was happening. And you would, to know that there had to be some legitimacy to the story, and to have like the New York Post, one of the oldest newspapers and a pretty respected newspaper, silenced on social media, to have Facebook and Twitter actually agreeing on something for the first time and working to shut it down. Yeah. It's intimidating, and it makes you question everything going on.
Yeah, and it's anti-democratic. And of course, the other big legal news coming out of the US at the moment is former President Trump, his indictment. What's the latest on that?
Okay, Leo, so I didn't know if you wanted this to be the segue, but when you asked about distractions, obviously, or if they're going to look for a way to try to kill that Hunter Biden story, I mean, here we go. Talking about former President Donald Trump facing 78 felony charges and 3 criminal trials on the campaign trail. A 4th indictment could come any day now. What I will say is Trump's base is unique in the sense that any sort of trial or charge electrifies them. It motivates them. They're very protective of him. Where if you look at Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's entire campaign revolves around a moral superiority to Trump. But you look at Hunter and it's like, look at your wayward son and the way he uses his connections to you to fatten his pockets, plus alleged drugs, plus alleged guns, plus alleged girls and tax evasion. Trump is unapologetic, and that is why his base loves him.
Yeah, and I mean, the allegations with Hunter Biden do link back to Joe. I mean, Hunter Biden himself said that he's kicking up half of the money he's raking in, the millions he's raking in, up to the big guy. So, yeah, I mean, it seems Joe doesn't have clean hands with that. There's been a poll conducted in Iowa which said that half of Republicans say that Trump should still campaign for president in 2024, even if he's imprisoned. How do you see that playing out?
Okay, but I do have to stress, alternatively, according to the same poll, 4 in 10 say that Trump should drop out of the presidential race entirely if he ends up in jail. You know, he does retain that strong grip that he needs in Iowa, an important early state, with the president facing, I don't know, I mean, with him facing so many criminal trials, it raises the possibility, you know, insanely, of a presidential candidate being imprisoned during his campaign and potentially facing hundreds of years in prison if found guilty on all counts. But I'm just going to say, Trump is a fighter. He was seen today overshadowing his GOP rivals at the Iowa State Fair, followed around like a rock star, people wanting pictures, people wanting his autograph. He's defiant as ever, and that really ignites his base.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, this is strengthened. This indictment has strengthened him. And that might be what the Democrats want to do, because they couldn't win against Ron DeSantis, but they could win against Trump. And before we move on, I would just like to say, of course, that Hunter Biden he's innocent until proven guilty. So we're not drawing any conclusions about that. But do research what the House Oversight Committee said about him and Joe Biden's business connections if you want some information, if you're sitting at home. And moving on, Kinsey, of course, Prince Harry and Meghan are in the news again this week. Harry's been playing polo in Singapore, hasn't he?
Yeah, this is for a Sitabale charity. Leo, you're going to be so mad at me. I'm not going to criticize him about this. He's raised over $12 million collectively for this charity that, you know, it's important to them that they help anybody affected, children affected by HIV or AIDS.
Is that Singapore dollars, though?
Pardon? Can you say that one more time?
Is that Singaporean dollars or is that real dollars?
I believe it's dollars. I would have to check with you. But I do feel like perhaps this is an example of Prince Harry listening to us and using this amazing platform that God gifted him with to focus on other people instead of wallowing in his own misery. So I have to give him props this time around.
But I've got to say, he's got some sort of plan to help poor people, poor kids, get into polo. And I thought there's a bit of a barrier with getting into polo because you need a horse. Is he going to hand out horses from his private collection out to poor children in the north of England? Are we all going to have a horse in our bathtub?
You know what, Leo? You're asking logistics questions, and I really respect that. You're a logical person, so I'm going to give you props too. You know, what he talked about in Japan was that sports really is heals people mentally and physically. Sports can heal you from trauma, and I do think that he's just looking for different ways that, you know, his favorite sport is polo, and he's looking for ways to help children, underprivileged children. And you're right, where are they going to find the horse? There's a lot of logistics to think about, but he's just trying to find a way to help people through some of his passions.
Well, I guess that's nice. Kinsey, thanks so much for joining us. That was really interesting.
Thanks, Leo.
And Prince Harry next week will be helping poor children collect Fabergé eggs. Anyway, coming up, we've got the papers at 10:30 p.m. sharp with full panel reaction, plus tonight's headline heroes and backpage zeros. And I want to know yours. Email gbviews@gbnews.com. See you in a couple of minutes.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK over the next few days. There'll be some sunshine, but some rain too. But things will be turning warmer, certainly towards the middle part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment. That's feeding a fair few showers in on the southwesterly breeze. And we need to keep an eye on this little feature running in from the southwest. That'll bring some more rain on Sunday night into Monday. Back to tonight, though, it's a case of clear spells and showers. The most frequent showers towards the north and west of the UK, some of them fairly heavy towards the northwest of Scotland. In the best of the clear spells down towards the southeast, temperatures holding up fairly well actually at 15 or 16 degrees and falling no lower than 13 or 14 towards the north and northwest. As for Sunday, well, it's a day of sunshine and showers. The showers most frequent and most widespread on Sunday towards the north and northeast of the UK. A few heavy, perhaps even thundery ones around here. Whereas towards the south and east, it's a brighter picture, plenty of sunny spells around. And with lighter winds, and on Saturday, it should feel a bit warmer out and about, temperatures peaking at 23 Celsius, 73 in Fahrenheit. Monday, there looks like being a pretty unsettled day across England and Wales. Outbreaks of quite heavy, potentially thundery rain working in from the southwest as we go through the day. Whereas towards the north and northwest, it's a day of sunshine and showers once again. And temperatures peaking in the high teens to low 20s, 23 down towards the southeast is 73 in Fahrenheit. Warming up though as we head toward the middle of the week, we could even see 30 degrees in one or two spots.
A brighter outlook with Boxed Solar. Proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panelists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's 10:30 p.m. It's time for the papers. So let's have a look at tomorrow morning's newspapers. They're hot off the press, or the printer anyway. The Independent leads with "Get these brave men and women to safety in the UK." They're talking about the Afghans who helped our troops when we're in occupation over there. So they're telling the MPs and the top brass to keep our promise because the deadline for giving sanctuary to them is about to end. The Observer leads with Channel boat deaths prompt fresh anger over asylum policy. There's a hunt for survivors who could still be in the Channel, as at least 6 are known to have drowned, sadly. They're urging safe routes to deal with the crisis. The Sunday Express has, for pity's sake, stop the boats as 6 migrants die at sea. MPs demand crackdown on cruel trafficking gangs. They've also, on a lighter note, got a picture of the Lionesses. They're through to the World Cup semi-final after winning in Sydney, although they were playing women, which does make it easier. The Mirror has how many more must die before Tories get a grip, criticising the Tory policy. Although it's the Tories who've been trying to stop these dangerous crossings and stop the criminal gangs risking these poor people's lives. Although they're not that poor if they're paying the criminal gangs. The Sunday People says 6 dead in small boat horror, 2 more missing in Channel tragedy. The Sunday Telegraph says ministers want more barges for asylum seekers. So the Bibby Stockholm holds 500, but that's about a day's worth of people coming across the Channel. At the moment, they also say that Labour drops its pledge to roll out EULEZ zones. That's good news for anybody who's got a car and a family. Badenoch says all buildings must provide single-sex lavatories. Bad news for GB News. We've got combined. And also maternity negligence claims surge as women's fears ignored. The Sunday Times has tougher A-level grading vital to halt university dropout surge. Almost 30% of students are quitting some degrees. I guess they're getting A-level results that are too good, and then they can't handle the heat when they actually get onto a university course. And the Daily Star has Grandmasters of the Universe. Space Boffin's secret plan to stop an alien invasion. Invite them to play chess. So that's news. That's official. That's official news. But the big story, tragically, is the deaths in the Channel. 6 men, I believe, Afghan men drowned in the Channel. And of course, you know, we've been involved in conflict in Afghanistan, destabilising the region. We then abandoned Afghanistan, and the Taliban surged back into power, and then took revenge on people who'd helped us. And some of them can apply for a visa through a safe and legal route, but it looks like other people are taking their chances across the Channel. I mean, it's tragic when you think about it. But I mean, what would you make of this, Hilary?
Well, I'm in contact with a guy in Afghanistan who I've been talking to ever since Taliban came back, mainly just keeping his morale up because he's, every so often gets very, very down.
Is he in the Taliban? Or?
No. He's in hiding, basically, from the Taliban. He worked with an NGO. They haven't helped him to get out. It wasn't a British NGO he worked with. It was actually an American-French one, so we're not at fault in his case.
Right.
But just talking to him, he desperately wants to get out. He can't get a passport because the Taliban don't just hand out passports that easily. And if you're somebody of interest to them and you go and apply for a passport, then they could arrest you.
Yeah.
So he says to me, how can I get out? Help me to get out. Have you got any ideas? And then every so often he'll say, I'm just going to smuggle myself on a boat and come to England. And I say, no, don't do that. It's too dangerous. So I totally understand why people do this.
Yeah.
We talk about economic migrants and as though that's the whole problem, but it's not. There are a lot of genuine refugees.
Yeah.
And the way that we've abandoned the Afghans is pretty disgraceful, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is appalling. And I mean, for all the, we can look at some of the people coming across. I mean, people coming from Albania, of course. It's not a war-torn country, but they're coming for a better life. Yeah. But I mean, my concern on a bigger scale, I mean, we've seen huge numbers. I think 100,000 have come across in the last just couple of years, and that's on top of the legal migration. Legal migration, we're at net 700,000, and it was 1.1 million visas were issued. So 600,000 last year, and 1.1 million visas were issued. Obviously, some people left the UK as well. But I mean, to have such large-scale migration in quite a short period of time, that can really change a nation's makeup. And, people coming from failed states with, medieval ideologies might be bringing ideas that don't mesh well with Western
I've actually got to a point now where I find it very distressing watching this news, and it's like a whole lot of people that you haven't invited who are turning up, and the government are the people who get all the criticism, but in actual fact I would point the finger at the lawyers who every time the government try to do something to prevent this, whether it's a barge or whatever it is, whether it's Rwanda, these lawyers step in, they're making a lot of money out of this, and they're thwarting everything that the government tries to do. And, we are still a small island. We're a small, crowded island, and we just don't have the room.
Yeah, and Gary, I mean, as David says, every attempt that the government has made to stop the small boats, which would have saved these men's lives, has been stymied by leftist lawyers, NGOs, European courts. It's ridiculous.
There's a confusion because there obviously are people who are genuine asylum seekers from refugees from war zones, etc., whose cases should be considered with the utmost compassion. But it's confused with people who are just economic migrants, because the people we see coming over largely on the boats are from Albania, and there's nothing wrong with people from Albania, nothing wrong with them coming, but they could easily fly in from Albania. It doesn't cost much to get a plane from Tirana to Heathrow. They're getting rid of their passports because they're illegal. They want to come in under the radar. They want to be part of the black market. But these are two different things altogether that are being confused together.
Although the government has really tackled the issue with Albanians. They used to make up the majority of cross-channel migrants, but because of the government's intervention with the Albanian government and assistance in Albania, they've actually managed to stop that element coming across.
I think the thing, it's one thing, blaming the government, blaming the lawyers. What about the organised crime, the gangs that are behind these boats? That is what has got to be tackled.
Making huge profits.
Yeah, and I think internationally somebody has got to do something to stop these gangs.
Yeah,
they are causing the problem.
What brings it home is what's happened today, that we know that at least 6 people have drowned on this crossing, and that's what really brings it home to you. And, that, as you say, there are gangs making a great deal of money out of this, and it's all completely wrong.
Yeah. On a lighter note, we've got the Daily Star with the Grandmasters of the Universe. So the space muffins' secret plan to stop an alien invasion, invite them to play chess. What on earth are they on about?
I think this is a Gary Bushell story.
Well, it isn't, but I do think it's a vital one, because if you are going to be anally probed by an alien, is it better to be a king or a queen in this situation? What piece is better for you? I don't know.
You're just a pawn in their game. So, I mean, I guess if that was to happen, do you think, though, that they're just bringing out this alien invasion stuff? Because I noticed they brought it out and nobody's really paying any attention to the US government has basically said, no, we've got aliens, we've got alien artefacts, we've got metal, we've got, bodies, and people are just like, whatever. What are you distracting us from? People just don't trust the government anymore.
It's true. I mean, maybe there are aliens and we have no idea.
Yeah. What would you say to aliens if they arrived?
Checkmate.
Let me out.
Take me back with you.
Take me back,
The Star loves this kind of story, though, doesn't it, Gary?
Yes.
I mean, that Gary does love stuff for the Star. And, I guess it sells newspapers, A
lot of aliens buy it.
Yeah, popular on Mars.
That's who's buying them.
Anyway, moving on. Reacting to the front pages. Oh, no, that's the last. Anyway, coming up, more from the papers next. Plus tonight's headline heroes and back page zeros. And I want to know yours. Email gbviews@gbnews.com. I'll see you in 3 minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Monday to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
With me this evening, David Hamilton, Hilary Freeman and Gary Bushell. It's time now for their headline heroes and back page zeros. Gary, who's your headline hero?
Well, I'm not a Crystal Palace fan, but Simon Jordan, the Palace chairman, I thought he did a really good thing this week when he appealed to men to come forward and get tested for prostate cancer, because it's a big, vital thing that people aren't doing.
Is he doing the tests himself?
I think he's done it, yeah.
I hope he's washing his hands between men. Prostate cancer is a big killer of men, and I think we're sometimes embarrassed to go to the doctor.
Exactly that, yeah.
I'm actually a bit too eager. I go every 2 weeks. I enjoy the process. But yeah, I mean,
Sometimes they can do very nasty things to you. I won't go into
the voice of experience.
The voice of experience, and I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. No. But if it comes to it, yeah, you know, it is. It's a killer, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is, and it's worth that moment of awkwardness in the doctor's surgery.
Men, you just try being a woman. We've been poked and prodded for the whole of our lives.
That sounds like fun, though. I was present when my wife gave birth, and for all the fuss, I mean, it didn't seem that bad. Anyway, I better move on. Hilary, who's your headline hero?
My headline hero, well, it's a collective, the Lionesses, for taking us through to the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup.
Amazing. Who did they beat?
Colombia.
Colombia. Brilliant.
I had to think about that for a second.
Yeah, well, I'd forgotten myself, but like Colombia are an amazing footballing nation, so that's even in women's football that must be quite impressive.
Well, I just think even in women's football. Oh, do you want me to get up and come over there?
And David, who have you got?
Yeah, I'm actually on the same theme, because I've chosen Chloe Kelly, who scored that vital penalty, which got us through to the quarter-finals. And what was amazing about it was that the shot was faster than any goal in the men's Premier Premier League last season.
Really?
Yeah, so anybody not taking women's football seriously
which I do.
should look at that. And I'm loving it. I watched it this morning, and I really got caught up in it. And these girls are so good. And, of course, they're now going to be in the semi-final playing Australia in Australia.
Right.
So how tough is that going to be? But people have got... And what's happening now is young girls now all want to play football, you know.
Amazing.
They're getting boots and shirts and everything. And everybody, people like Gary, you know, big Charlton supporter, me, you know, big Fulham supporter, we always used to say, it's a man's game. Not anymore.
Well, it's great to see.
Also, Chloe Kelly, when they beat Nigeria, she went over and consoled the goalkeeper.
Yes, she did.
Rather than celebrating herself.
Very
she was
nice gesture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, that's some sportsmanship that you don't always see. Gary, who's your sportswomanship, of course. Yeah. How patriarchal of me. Anyway, Gary, who's your back page zero?
Well, my back page zero this week is also my back page zero the entire year. It's Sadiq Khan.
Right.
Because with the EULEZ thing, I just think that his inability to listen, his stubborn persistence with this, and the absolute hell it's going to bring to people who live in the outer regions, who are plumbers and building workers who cannot take tubes because there are no tubes.
And people with families who need to get their kids to... I mean, football practice. Could have a daughter going to football practice. Could be the next, you know, World Cup sensation.
Exactly.
And it seems so mean-minded. But, I mean, I think he does listen, Gary. He just wants that money.
No, well, that's it. It's all about the money, really. And I spoke to a former MP this week, and the MP said to me, when he was an MP... he believed that MPs should be the servants of the people, not the masters. And this is what Sadiq Khan is not appreciating. You can't impose this stuff on people. And when we all want to be environmentally cleaner, that's a fantastic goal. But we've got to take people with us. We can't force it on people. There'll be a tremendous backlash. And every time he opens his mouth, I think Labour loses 100 votes.
Yeah, and Keir Starmer seems to think so too, because I mean he's flip-flopped on the EULEZ EULEZ pledge. Hilary, who's your back page zero?
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say live on air, but it's Lee Anderson, the Tory MP, who said that to migrants that if they don't want to be housed in barges, they should F off back to France.
Yeah, I mean, it's in delicate language, but you think it went too far?
Yeah, I do. He's like some sort of Viz kind of comedy character, Tory MP, isn't he? He's just, you know, he's just uncouth. He's just... It doesn't help the debate at all to say stuff like that.
Well, I'd say, you know, it might not help bring people on board to win them over with his argument.
Do you not think, though, it sums up the frustration of millions of people about our inability to control our own borders?
Well, yeah, but that's not for the migrants to F off, then, is it? It's the government.
He's actually part of the GBNews team, and he has his own programme. And funnily enough, I'm going to be a guest on his programme next week. So
I don't suppose I will be.
Hilary, I'll give him your regards.
That's a fantastic show. It's in Adam Brooks's pub in Essex, I believe, is where it's filmed. So yeah, you'll have a lot of fun.
Well, it was going to be in Essex this week, but it's now moved to Uxbridge.
Oh, really?
Which, of course, is a very interesting venue, isn't it? Yeah, apparently.
And that's where they had the by-election where the EULEZ, Sadiq Khan's EULEZ, played such a pivotal role in, in fact, winning it for the Tories when everybody thought they were
Is it done in a pub? I think it is, isn't it? They do it in a pub?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, don't worry, you'll be able to get your shandy.
That's obviously the fee. A few bevies.
David, who's your back?
Well, it's something I was talking about earlier, and that was the lawyers, you know, who have been making so much money out of advising migrants, in this particular case, advising them not to go on a barge because they were going to say that they were allergic to water. You know, they were frightened of water when they've just come across the channel in canoes. And, you know, once again, you know, I don't know where they've gone. I guess probably they've gone back to hotels. This is costing us something like £5 million a day.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, how long can we sustain that?
And it seems so cynical and exploitative for these lawyers who should be, you know, acting in the best interests of Britain to instead be, essentially fiddling the rules and coaching, migrants into how to pass the asylum system. So you say you've converted to Christianity, so you can't get sent back because you'll be persecuted. You say you're gay, so you can't get sent back. You say you helped British people or whatever it is. There's various ways you can sort of game the system.
Fault, isn't it?
Yeah,
the lawyers are just doing what lawyers do.
But the system was set up for different times when people weren't doing this. They weren't trying to come into the UK and weren't fiddling the asylum system. And it was the system was set up in good faith, but people
was this part of the human rights? Is it to do with human rights? Is it linked up with that?
Yeah, sure. But rather than sticking people in hotels or on prison boats where they can't do anything.
It's not a prison boat. I mean, it was used for oil workers, so they're not prisoners.
Yeah, but they were allowed to leave.
I think the people in the Bibby Stockholm are allowed to leave.
Yeah.
So they're allowed to, walk onto the shore, walk back.
Well, once a day or something, apparently.
Great name, isn't it? Bibby Stockholm. Sounds like some sort of low-rent pool net.
I mean, that would be...
On a serious note, why not allow them to work? We've got a shortage of people picking fruit.
Yeah.
Why not say, OK, you can work? You can pay taxes.
Well, why don't
instead
of being dependent on importing, what's essentially, low-skilled, low-wage labour, instead, why don't we rebalance the economy so that people who pick fruit get paid a decent wage and can...
There's just one problem. It's almost entirely men.
Yeah.
So it's very unbalanced. It's not like you've got, women and children coming in, and in many cases families have been separated, and it's only the men who are coming in.
Someone compared it to a Ponzi scheme in that you think you're doing well because they're all coming in, they're all working, but then 60 years down or 50 years down the line, they've all got families, they've got to pay pensions.
Anyway, Gary, Hillary and David, unfortunately we've got to leave it there, but thank you so much for joining me tonight, and thanks for watching tonight, and stay tuned for Headliners, which is coming up next. Good night.
The temperature's rising. Boxed Solar, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, I'm Marco Petagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see a mixed bag of weather across the UK over the next few days. There'll be some sunshine, but some rain too. But things will be turning warmer, certainly towards the middle part of the coming week. Low pressure's anchored towards the northwest of the UK at the moment. That's feeding a fair few showers in on the southwesterly breeze. And we'll need to keep an eye on this little feature running in from the southwest. That'll bring some more rain on Sunday night into Monday. Back to tonight, though, it's a case of clear spells and showers. The most frequent showers towards the north and west of the UK, some of them fairly heavy towards the northwest of Scotland. In the best of the clear spells down towards the southeast, temperatures holding up fairly well, actually, at 15 or